Hi everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to Franklin Covey's Facebook page and for our short session today titled More Than a Feeling. We'll be talking about how you can be able to deal with feelings, deal with all these negative feelings and concerns, challenges that you're facing. We've got a great set of questions today. Okay? And personally, I like the title. Okay? I like rock music, and for those who don't know, search on YouTube. This is a rock song, right? And I caught myself singing it as I was reading the title. So, hi everyone, welcome again. I'm Lippy, Lippy. So, I'm a professional certified coach with the International Coach Federation. I also have a website. It's coachlippy.com, where I write about a lot of what we'll be talking about today. And of course, I'm a licensed facilitator for Franklin Covey Philippines. So specifically, we've got some great questions here. I'm joined with the team behind the camera. So we have Javik, Amanda, and Paolo as well, supporting us all behind the scenes, right? So thank you guys for really setting up this session and giving us an opportunity to share the learning as well. Okay. So what makes this session different from different sessions is, well, while we were coming up with the concept, it was that I would be sharing real talk, okay? Because sometimes I get in my session, sir, that's a really nice concept, but out in the real world, and I pause in that moment. And then think to myself, but aren't we in the real world? Okay. Right? This as I share the content and I have a conversation with you guys, okay? I'm not I'm not here offering like cut and dried and this is a step-by-step process that will solve your problem. It might work, right? But I invite you to think about, as I share the concepts and as I share what I've learned and what I've applied and what my coaches have applied as well, think about how you can apply that in your own life. Okay? One thing that, especially today, we'll be talking about feelings and handling feelings. That is a highly unique element each person has. Okay? And how people handle it can be differently, can be slightly nuanced from person to person. Okay? So this isn't about a cut and dried process. This is more about self-awareness and really understanding, okay, the feelings I have, what causes these feelings, and what drives me, how these feelings drive me to act and choose and behave. Right? In a nutshell, that is what emotional intelligence is. Okay? So from my awareness, emotional intelligence is based on and is the self-awareness and knowledge of how we're feeling, what we're feeling. Are we able to notice it? Are we able to name it? Right? And how that affects the decisions and actions that we choose. And hopefully it affects us productively as well. Okay? And there's a lot of materials out there and several people who are certified here in the Philippines. You can reach out to us and we can connect you. Okay? You can search that all out there. Suffice to say, what I'm here to share is also how some of the Covey principles and some of the content we have applies exactly, right, to developing, maintaining, and sharing emotional intelligence as well. So that's the first one. The first one is really think about, for our conversation today, how you can apply what we'll be sharing. Okay. And we'll have the team handle as well the chat, so you can just feel free to put your comments in, put in your questions. We have some questions from the previous talks and previous sessions, and if you have any questions or you want to expound on something, you want to ask about something, just feel free to put it in there, right? And we'll make sure to raise it up, address it, and if we can answer it right now, that will be fantastic in this section. Okay. So I don't have any slides for our session today. This will really be a conversation. I'm really more focused on what the questions are and what you guys have to bring. All right? So before we move, I want to share one key concept. Okay, well, several key concepts actually that for me have been really helpful to developing emotional intelligence, developing the self-awareness, okay, and developing the ability to notice, right, to name, and as well to harness the different emotions and feelings that might be coming up for me in the moment. First is in the 7 habits, we have the first habit, which we call be proactive. And when we talk about being proactive, the concept here is really we don't respond to whatever just happens to us. If I feel bad, right, sometimes I just snap or I say things I might regret later. That's not what we're sharing. In the 7 habits here in Covey, we share that it's important to be proactive. Okay? Meaning, when something happens, when there's a stimulus, we create space, we create some time for us to consider what would be the best response for that. And this is a huge part in the equation of emotional intelligence. Okay? Because in emotional intelligence, there is that space where we ask people to, okay, if something's happening, if you're in a situation, take some time to take a step back and notice what are you feeling in this moment. Can you identify, can you name what you're feeling? Okay? And then as you name it, as you identify what you're feeling, think about, all right, what is it that I want to be doing? How is it I want to be responding in this situation, given that this is how I'm feeling, or in spite of this is what I'm feeling. Okay? So that's the first concept. As I go through all of these questions, one big thing we have to remember is that we are not our feelings. It's kind of an irony here. We are not our feelings in that we can choose otherwise what our feelings say. We can step apart, step aside, step back from them, and notice our feelings. That's one step of being proactive. In the same time, okay, we are closely connected with our feelings because our feelings act as like an antenna, radar for us. Sometimes they're data for us to consider. We feel certain things because of certain situations, maybe because of past experiences, our paradigms, our beliefs. It could be something important to us that's making us feel this way. And so it's not just looking at our emotions as data that's separate from us, but it's also using our emotions to why am I feeling this way? What's making me feel this way? This is another huge element in emotional intelligence. If I'm able to identify what's making me feel this way, what's the value, what's making it so emotional and important for me, then it will help me create a better response in that situation. And that's piece that I want to share with you. The second habit that we have in the 7 habits is to begin with the end in mind. Meaning when we respond, we think about what kind of impact do we want to make? What kind of end result do I want to have from the response that I'm creating? What is it that I want to have happen, right, in this situation? Okay. And that's something that is important for us, okay, to consider what is it that I want to happen? What's the end result, okay, coming from this, so that we are able to harness our feelings instead of we're acting despite of our feelings, all right? It could be one way that it can look at it is, okay, I'm gonna do this because my feelings telling me this is something that's important for me, right? Or on the other spectrum, okay, I can choose to say no to that because I'm not feeling too hot about it. I'm not feeling a lot of energy about this, right? And as I dig deeper, maybe it's not something that's as important, right? And so thank you. So Richard has already shared hello, and we're there. We are not our feelings. I like the idea of we can step aside, away, and back from them. Yes, right. That's what emotional intelligence is. It's us having the ability to notice our feelings. Okay, And that's where habit one plays a huge part in that, where we step back, create some space for ourselves. Could be time, could be actually physical space, like if there's something that's happening and it's not causing a great feeling in us, it might be helpful to sometimes, step out. I'm already giving tips here. Step out from the room, step away from that situation, and almost literally take a step back and take a look at that big picture, right, of what you're seeing as well. Okay. Which will then help us consider, okay, now that I have the space to respond, how would I be responding in consideration of what I want to happen? Okay. What impact do I want to have on this relationship with this person, especially if this person is the cause of the different feelings I have, right? And that's the main two concepts that I want to bounce and I want to share with you guys. And it's key. That's what we share here in Covey, and it's the foundation of the 7 habits. None of the habits gets practiced effectively, right, until we're able to create space to respond and consider what we want. Okay? Being proactive and beginning with the end in mind. Okay? Let's go to the first question. Okay, so so JVIC and the team share the question on the screen as you're seeing this. So first question, how do I deal with people who exhibit toxic positivity? Okay, how do I deal with people who exhibit toxic positivity? Oh, before I forget, so as I share the answers to these questions, I'll be sharing concepts. I'll be sharing personally for me, right? Real talk. This is real talk. How would I deal with it? What has worked for me and my coaches, right? At the same time, I'm also be sharing principles that you guys can apply, okay? Meaning my answer might not be the exact answer that works for you. I hope you're able to take some stuff out from it and apply it in your life. Okay, so how do I deal with people who exhibit toxic positivity? So let's define that. What's toxic positivity? Okay? From what I've read and what I've encountered, toxic, well, not taking stock of a situation and always looking on what is positive on the bright side, while at the same time discounting the reality, and there is a non-acceptance, right, of the current feelings and reality of a person. Okay. What's an example of toxic positivity? So this was me at the start of this whole pandemic lockdown. People would come to me and share their problems, and I wouldn't even listen deeply. I would just say, "Hindi, kaya mo yan. You can do it. It's all gonna turn out great." All you have to do is think positively without actually listening and considering what is the reality. What is this person saying? That's one aspect of what toxic positivity is. Bottom line is a non-acceptance of a person's feelings and really just forcing the perspective, forcing the viewpoint of just always looking on the bright side. Okay? And toxic because at the same time, part of emotional intelligence and part of having a healthy relationship with myself and with my feelings is noticing and understanding what feelings I have, right? And accepting those feelings. Okay? So the only way we can actually move on and healthily deal with what we're feeling is to face it and accept it. If I'm feeling, I almost got censored there. If I'm not feeling so good, if I'm feeling down, that's where I am. It's okay. Okay? Accept that as the starting point. Okay? And especially in our culture nowadays of always looking on the bright side, let's think positive. Sometimes that's not seen as a good thing, but in my personal experience and the coaches, people I've coached, they share me that it's really important to be able to accept where I'm feeling now, because it's only in that acceptance where we can begin to move on and begin to truly be positive. Okay? So the next point of this question that I want to tackle is the deal part. Okay. If I were coaching you, I would ask you, when you say deal, what do you mean by deal? What does that mean? You deal with these people who exhibit toxic positive influence. Basically, it tells us that there are things in our life that we do have interest and we have control over. And then there are things in our life that we don't have on our circle of influence, meaning what we can control, the more we feel and the greater ability and capability we have to be able to actually um, influence things, events, especially our behavior. Okay. So when this person asks, and there are a lot of assumptions that also go under this question. How do I deal with people who exhibit toxic positivity? I would rather aim the question internally at myself, because then I don't have full control over what this person does, right? If I tell the person that's not helping, but for this person, okay, maybe this person, it's if I am assuming for the good, maybe this person is in a place in their life where they're really positive, right? And they're not paying attention, they're not noticing that I'm not in a similar space as you are or as they are, right? So I would invite you to turn that question inward. How would you deal with yourself? Okay? Meaning, if that's toxic positivity, how are you dealing with the negative emotions that's coming up with you? Okay? How are you coming to notice it? Sharing that. So thanks, Pao. Confront reality, definitely. And Anjing, hey, Papa Ben, is sharing, okay, there needs to be awareness and acceptance of one's feelings. I have a mentor shares this. First step of her self-coaching and coaching process is there needs to be an awareness and acceptance of one's reality, which includes one's feelings, right? Um, concrete tips. Okay, is this a person you can have a conversation with, right? Or is this a person that you can set aside some time to not deal with or not be with, right? I think it's really important to also note here, right? Because the question is, how do I deal with the people who exhibit toxic practices that you have to be able to deal with your feelings as well, right? Are you setting aside time for yourself? Because there's a lot of assumptions with these questions. If I were coaching you, right, and thank you for this question, I would aim that inward. When you talk about deal, what does that actually mean? And when you talk about, right, how you're dealing with the emotions that you're feeling, how are you coming to terms accepting, right, the emotions that you are experiencing? Okay. So we have a question. So how does our ability to recognize our own feelings relate to our ability to recognize and respect others' feelings as well? So thanks, Paolo. That's a really great question. It's closely linked, right? Again, the power to notice and to be sensitive to our own feelings directly correlates to our ability to recognize and respect and note at the start, notice other people's feelings as well. Right? It's an ability. It's like a muscle. The more sensitive we are to ourselves, the stronger our muscle becomes to be able to connect with other people as well. Okay. And then that translates into recognizing and respecting others' feelings as well. In this case, that's a good question I'd like to throw at this. How are you respecting your own feelings? Because there could be an undertone in the question of when this person is sharing their toxic positivity, sounds not respecting, right? That's a question I'd like to throw to you first. How are you respecting your first, right? Which includes maybe creating distance and no boundaries as well. Okay? Which I feel in a way emotions as well as others, right? Which I, which in a way I'm answering this question. Okay, alam, juggle my emotions sounds so tiring. It's not a word I might use. I would ask that of you, right? What's your experience when you say juggling your emotions? You're throwing one up, catching one, throwing one up, changing, right? As well as others. That means, so there are two things I'm picking up, right? There's that this person, how do you juggle my emotions? Well, what other verb? How would you want to be handling, right, your emotions as well? Okay. How would you want to be feeling instead of you juggling your emotions? Right? So this is an application of habit two. What's the end in mind also when it comes to how I want to be feeling? right? How do I want to juggle my emotions as well as others? So emotional intelligence is not a contest. There's not like a 10-point scale where okay, this person is on a 10 and you're only on a 7. You gotta move it up to 10. And our feelings doesn't work that way. No? It's highly personal to each person, and each person is really fighting their own battles, if I may, right? And this is something for us personally to sort and to identify. Just noticing at first, right? I'm not even asking you to solve it. The solving comes from the noticing. If you're able to notice and you're able to identify how this you want to feeling, right? And respond to that accordingly, then you're able to create a solution about it. Then you're able to get a step closer to what it is you want to be feeling. Right? As well as others. Are those other people you can talk to? You might wanna get into conversation with other people, right? Maybe ask some tips how they're handling their emotions or how they juggle their emotions. Maybe even discover they're not juggling all that well, right? But at the end of the day, if this is a person that you can talk to, or this is a person you can get into conversation to, I highly encourage you to get into that conversation. You know, sometimes a practice that I have that helps me, gain acceptance and clarity about what I'm feeling is either I speak to someone I trust, I get coached, or I talk to a therapist, or I write it down in a journal. So it helps to see and to identify and to actually articulate and name what I'm feeling. That way I'm able to deal with it more objectively rather than have all these feelings swimming around in my head and in my body. So that's one big tip that I want to share with you guys. Okay. All right, next question we have. So JVK and the team's helping me out here. The next question, how do we tell our boss, colleagues, direct reports that we have boundaries? there's so there's so many layers to this question, right? And in regards to our topic at hand, what makes you feel like you can't tell them? What's stopping you from sharing what you feel and what's important for you? Think about it this way. If I were coaching this person, I would ask this person, what would be the cost to you or the consequence to you if you don't tell them about your boundaries? Right? Another assumption that sometimes we have is that it's normal, no? And when I say it's normal, there's an assumption that the way I think is the way a lot of other people think. That's just not true. No, people are unique, and the way people think are unique. Meaning, part of emotional intelligence is not only recognizing the feeling, but also communicating. And sometimes there's an assumption. Sometimes I have this is my experience with my coaches, right? Sometimes they say we can't tell that to our boss because we don't know how they will react. Okay, so there's a feeling there, right? You've already gone 2 steps ahead, where in fact that's not a fact. That's all happening in your head, right? As compared to what is the end goal here, right? If if everyone in your team were respecting boundaries, what kind of impact would that have on how you live your life and how you show up at work? Is that worth it to get into conversation, right? So I invite you to be proactive and to focus on what is the end in mind you want, okay? Because if you don't tell other people, it's unrealistic to assume that they'll get it. Okay? It's about communicating, but first and foremost, it's about understanding how are you feeling about this, right? Our feelings can come about from past experiences and from paradigms that we have. What's a paradigm? It comes from the Greek word paradigma, meaning lens. How we see the world, our perspective on this situation. And then there are three different people. So, I don't want to assume this person might have a different perspective about what's my boss like, a different perspective about what's my colleague like, a different perspective about what's my direct report like, And emotional intelligence is about honoring how those people are feeling as well. So if you can get into one big conversation with everyone, that's well and good. Okay. To make it easier for you, a tip might be to tackle each of those relationships singularly and have a conversation with each of those relationships. Because it's not just you who have boundaries. Okay? Surprise. It's not just me who has boundaries. Other people have boundaries as well. And I'm a firm proponent, the better that people begin to understand each other, the better people begin to work and relate with each other. Okay? So yeah, I mean, there's a lot that can be said about this question. Many different perspectives from our topic. You should ask this question of our other panelists, right? And each other panelist from the different topics that we'll be sharing will have a different perspective on this. Coming from our topic today, the perspective here is, how are you feeling about this, right? And what is it that you're wanting from this situation? Okay. And this is important, because this is about fulfilling your own needs. Okay? Emotional intelligence is also about recognizing what is it that I need because it's making me feel this way. So feelings are not just objects for us to stand back and to notice. In a way, I was sharing earlier, feelings like radar. It's like data. It's telling me something about this situation. And is that something helpful for me or not? That's something we can figure out when we create the space, when we step back. Sometimes taking a deep breath does it. For me, it does. And looking at the situation and, okay, what's making me feel this way, right? Why am I sharing this? Okay, this is not just touchy-feely. The practical tip here is that you can go into this conversation and share your reflection with that person. Boss, go start with the facts. Boss, this is what's happening, etc., etc. It's making me feel this way. Okay, because I'm figuring out that that's not something that's healthy for me. Start with the facts and let people know the consequences, okay? And then get into a conversation. So it's not just me talking. Get into a conversation with other people to talk about how is this making sense for you? How is this landing for you? I could go on and on with question 3. There's just so many things to talk about. Okay, so just if you have any follow-up questions, just put it into chat and we'll go into our next question. Okay. Next question. Okay. I think it's the 4th one, right? So how do I make sure that I don't add to people's stress but still be able to deliver the message? Sort of connected to question 3, right? Except this time you're the boss, colleague, or direct report. Can you get into a conversation with these people? Okay? Because there's an assumption that that if I do this, whatever this is, whatever that action is, that I'm adding to people's stress. And might be a fact, maybe it's not a fact. But it's something that you and these people need to be able to get into conversation about why. Because at the end of the day, okay, we want to stay true to ourselves and also deliver the message. Okay. And, at the end of the day, how other people feel is not in our circle of influence, but at the same time, it's in our circle of influence how we say it. Okay? So maybe that's my big tip. No, not maybe. That is my big tip for question 4. Number 1, it's not just the content, the actual words of what we say. What's more important is actually how we say it. Okay? Tone of voice, body language, okay? I invite this, if you're experiencing this, also invite you to get in touch with how you're feeling about delivering these messages, right? Is it coming from a place of importance, or is it coming from a place of fear, of worry, right? Is it coming from a place of service, or is it coming from a place of judgment? Where's that feeling coming from? Okay, because the assumption here is you're adding to the person's stress by delivering the message. Two big chunks here, right? What is really adding to a person's stress, and get into a conversation about that. If you don't deliver the message, would that be more stressful to the person to suffer the consequences down the line? Okay? Again, going back to accepting reality, to accepting how I'm feeling about, and you can even share. Now, part of emotional intelligence is being open, okay, and honest enough to share what you're feeling about this. I'm not feeling too good about this what I'm about to share. I'm concerned that this is not a technique. I want you guys to come from a real place. So when I'm sharing this, come from genuine concern. So my example here is, I'm really concerned about how stressed you are. Okay, there's a message there's something that's important for me to tell you, because this might be the consequence if I don't tell you. So this is an example of how I do it. Okay. I mean, I get the intention of this question. Now, I hope could be, I care for the person, but I still need to deliver the message. Okay? And that's something that people don't get enough of, and that actually people appreciate. Meaning you can deliver some tough news. If it's coming from a place of care and concern, people will care enough to listen to it because they feel, okay, they feel that you're offering this, okay, in the spirit of service and the spirit of good. Okay? In coaching, there's a skill, we call it mirroring. Okay? It's that other people reflect back the emotions and feelings and approaches that I share with these people. So if I come from a place of concern, right, and I'm not angry, I'm not out here to stress people, okay, it's more than likely that the person will be able to understand that and will also be open and receptive coming from a place of concern. Okay? That's another thing. That's part of being proactive that I want to share about this question. What's your intention when you deliver the message? Right? Because sometimes people say, I don't want to stress people out, but the intention is, wala akong pake. This is such an annoying situation. Just gotta say the message, right? And God damned how you deal with it. Let's face it, sometimes that's the underlying intention behind our messaging and how we share to people. And that gets mirrored back. Okay? So think about, what's my intention when I'm sharing this message? Okay? From what feeling am I coming from as I'm sharing this? Okay? Is it an important enough message for you to overcome, right, your discomfort? Maybe go with that first. Say that this is an uncomfortable share, right? I've even had an opportunity before where I led the conversation with that. I feel uncomfortable sharing this message, right? But I feel it's important enough to have to say to you, this is where I'm coming from, right? Okay. So thanks. Even the Rinse, great movie, great movie. Feel what you feel, and those feelings are real. And like children, actually, children don't double think about their feelings. They feel their feelings fully and they express. Right? Right? How we say it, we will get it across via genuine concern. Yes, and it's come from a place of concern. The other person, will feel better, feel more about it, accepting about it. Right? Thank you. So we have another question. Actually, we have and in this question's a bit. Let me share the story. So this person, I thank you. Thank you for the effort. This person took the effort to actually write their story out for us. Okay, so I want to be able to share. JVic, are we sharing the? I asked the team to see if they can put this on a slide. It's a lot. So this is a real story, and I felt it was important enough to honor this contribution and to share it because it's real talk. This is how we think about our feelings. Usually, it comes out in stories like this, right? So the person shared, and this is the question or the thinking behind it. How do I properly handle this situation? Yung hindi stable ang feelings. Dahil nagtatransition ako sa pagtanggap ng mga ways ng buhay ngayon versus yung hatak ng damdamin ng old ways. Right? So handling and managing emotions, personal and those of others. In the hope of alleviating the magnitude of pain or helping divert attention that situations within the circle of influence. No? So as an individual, naisip ko lang, pag itong pandemic magtatagal, kailan nadala tong question na to? I guess, ang totoo naman, magtatagal pa tong pandemic na to. Dahil sa health protocols, lalaki ang mga bata ngayon na hindi alam ang emotional value ng shaking hands, yung beso-beso, yung pag-hug, physical contact. Tapos ako, madami akong tropa kabilaan. Yung kung ako lang at pamilya, kaya ko pa i-manage ang emotional impact of situation. Kasi mga tropa ko at mga kapamilya ko, sa akin din kumukuha ng insights, pero kasama ang venting. So minsan, na-absorb ko. So anong catharsis ko? Pag may me time, sandali, tapos 5 sunod-sunod na yosi, 5 sticks, straight. What about as a leader? Pinapakiramdaman ko ang style ng kausap ko, pati yung paradigm niya. So kinig lang, pero kailangan kong ipakita ang sincerity ng caring. Minsan mix ang approach ko kasi ayaw kong ma-misread nila na nakikita ko sila as soft. So in the end, nakokompromiso ko yung sarili kong feelings. Anong catharsis ko? Catharsis, what's my emotional release? Me time, tapos 5 sticks. Okay? So thank you for sending in that story, right? If I were coaching this person from this story, I'm really hearing this person's desire to show up, as a more composed person, okay? And they want to change how they show up both at home and at work. Okay? I'm also hearing this person, you're struggling with being able to manage your own feelings as well as the impact of other people sharing their feelings on you. Right? And I'm hearing the desire to be able to change the current state of where you are now into something that's more, as you say, you have to be able to properly handle this situation. Okay? If I were coaching you, I would inquire about, when you say properly handle this situation, what does this mean? Because I want to acknowledge you that you are doing something for yourself as well. And you're also aware enough to notice that might not be enough given the current situation of what you're facing. So this is also an example of what emotional intelligence or the seed of emotional intelligence can look like for us, right? It's really a self-awareness of what am I doing, and then what's the effect, what's it happening. In this case, the effect is I'm managing my own feelings, right, to help other people manage their own feelings, but after that situation, I find difficulty in how I manage my own feelings. That's what I'm picking up, and if I apply habit 2, it's how would you, when you say properly handle, what do you mean by properly handling this situation? Because it seems to me you're handling this situation, and yet there is almost like a tone of uncertainty in the sense of, is this the way to go with how I'm currently handling this situation? Hence the desire to more properly, right, whatever that means, handle the situation, right? And I want to share this example because sometimes this is what emotional intelligence can start off like and look like. It's literally a reflection of, this is what's happening to me, this is what it's making me feel, right? And then coupling that with what I was sharing earlier with habit 2, beginning with the end in mind, this isn't working. I want to be able to properly handle this situation. I want to show up differently, okay, so I don't have this concern weighing me down when I show up in my personal life and when I show up in my professional life. Okay? And thank you for being brave enough to write your whole story out. Okay. What I also want to highlight here is that it also sounds to me from the person's story that they're really putting in an effort to be able to help other people manage their emotions, right? What about you? Okay, and this is why I'm inquiring, because it sounds, and this is an assumption. Again, this is text, right? And this is something we can explore. From what you're sharing, is the me time and the five sticks, right? What you would call giving yourself, right? Your own emotional catharsis, because it sounds like you're really good at being able to provide that for other people and managing your own emotions. I mean, the statement kat pinapakiramdaman ko ang style, right? I'm being sensitive to the style of how I'm talking to, but yet I want to show being able to care, right? And yet I don't want them to misread that I see them as soft. So suddenly it's like, okay, you're managing several things there. You're managing your own emotions, you're managing what you're saying to this person, you're managing what you're saying to this person and how you treat them in the light of how you imagine they would look at you treating them, right? You hearing what I'm saying, right? And it doesn't have to be this complicated. Okay? There's a label, and it's nakikita ko sila as soft. How would you want to be seeing your people, right? I got into a situation something like this recently. And what changed, and if I may share, to be personal about this, what changed it for me was, okay, am I seeing this person as a problem, or am I seeing this person, right, as a person encountering a problem? Okay, so because when you're saying soft, that's already a label with everything that means. Or are we seeing this person as people who are going through something, right? So just be aware of this part of the self-awareness, right? Being able to stand back and be aware of how we're seeing the situation, how we're feeling about it. Okay. So when we say yung hindi stable ang feelings, that's also for other people. Okay. Define for yourself, right? When you want to feel stable, what does that mean? And this is a huge part of emotional intelligence. It's not just noticing and naming. In a way, what's the right word for it? It's being able to declare, right, a wanted end state. It's being able to declare and identify, this is how I want to feel. Because if I'm able to identify this is how I want to feel, it becomes easier for me to shift from where I am now towards where I want to be. Okay. So thank you for sharing your story, right? And I would inquire about several things. I hope this is helpful to everyone, and that you're able to get some tips from what I'm sharing, right? Paolo, am I seeing this person as a problem or as a person encountering a problem? Amen, right? Because that, again, how we see the world affects how we react or respond to the world. That's part of being proactive, right? And so if we're seeing something doesn't work, right? And this is the key point here. Emotional intelligence has a lot to do with our perspective of how we're seeing the situation as well. Okay? Which is why it's so important to notice and name where our feelings are coming from. Okay? If we're able to identify that, okay, then it's easier for us to be able to shift the mindset or belief that where we might be coming from into something that's more helpful. And when I say helpful, it gets us closer, facilitates us getting closer to the end point or the end result of what we want. In which case, I want to be able to feel more, gusto ko na stable ang feelings ko. I want to be able to properly handle this situation when it comes to this point. Right? Not just also noticing what is weighing you down, but also noticing the positive. What is the desire of this person? Because as I'm looking at this, it seems to me that this person really, values the emotional value of certain rituals that we have, or the emotional connection of a physical face-to-face interaction, because the person was sharing something about that as well, right? So emotional intelligence is not only about, and this is just me. I've talked about a lot of negative and a lot of people encountering problems. It's also identifying what makes you happy, right? What provides you joy? What provides you a lot of energy and excitement? That's also emotional intelligence. What motivates you, right? Because if you're able to tap into that, it's easier for you to be able to feel better, to be able to motivate yourself, to be able to provide yourself with energy, again, to achieve what it is that you want. So not just negative people, but also the positive. I have to remind myself also of that. Now, I am not exempt from all of these things that we're sharing as well. Okay? So thank you for that. Okay? So those are some of the questions that we received in the previous session. I just want to check in with you guys, right? Are there any questions or any situations that you've encountered that you want to share and you want to ask with the time left that we have? So I just want to ask our team behind to just check in with chat and see what else that the people are sharing. If there's a question. Okay. Right. So thank you everyone. Thank you everyone for being with us in this time together. And as I wrap up the session, I just want to highlight some of the things that struck me and that I feel is important to share if I were in your shoes handling and having to deal with all these questions. Again, number one is to allow myself time and space to be able to step back, create some space for myself to respond appropriately to what I'm feeling, to what I'm encountering, which includes accepting having awareness first of the current feeling, the current situation, and accepting, that is where it is. I feel, okay? Feelings are are like, I don't know, are they dual natured? Again, I'm not a psychologist, don't quote me on this, but feel free to correct me on this, right? In a way, they're like multifaceted pieces of stimuli that we have, because at the same time, feelings are feelings. There's nothing right or wrong with them, right? And they are feelings. It's how we feel about it. At the same time, they also point and highlight, right, what could be important for us in certain situation that we are encountering. Okay, so now, as I talk about it, what I want to share with everyone is, just accept your feelings for what they are. And at the same time, try to understand what do these mean and where are the feelings pointing you towards, right? After you've accepted it, and what does it tell you that? Okay? And then also identify what is the end in mind that you want, right? How would you want to be feeling about this situation? How would you want to be responding to the situation? Sometimes we just respond, we snap, we lash out. We're unsure about what we need to do because we're unsure about what it is that we want to happen. The clearer we are about what we want to happen, the better that can inform us about how we can be responding in a certain situation, how we can be responding to feelings and stimuli that we are encountering. Okay? And I guess a big tip that I want to share with everyone with all these questions is if you can get into conversation first with yourself, right? And then eventually with the concerned people, try to get into a conversation. And when I say conversation, it's not one way. You're not telling the person, this is me, this is what I want, this is, of course, that could be part of the conversation. Make it a two-way conversation. Get what's their view, what's their take on it, right? Where are they coming from? No? This is my boundaries. What's yours? No. Right? I don't want to assume right away because sometimes people tell me, but they won't listen. What's that? What do you mean by that? Right? If at the end of the day, let me share a story. So I've had a coachee one time, similar question to this. Right? And as we were exploring, he was really coming up with a lot of complaints and excuses about how their boss, colleagues, direct reports, this person feels is not listening to them, is not giving them the time of day. The person feels like there's a lack of respect, and the person feels they're not being listened to. The person feels bad about the situation. But yet, as we try to explore different possibilities, a person's really locked into that paradigm, that viewpoint, right? Sometimes it came to a point where I even asked the question, okay, so is this a situation or an environment you would consider staying longer in? What to do? At the end of the day, this is really about you defining what it is that you want to happen in that situation. Or at the very least, no, not or, and at the very least, defining for yourself what would you want to happen for yourself in this situation. Because you might not get person's reaction or a person following through on what you want them to do, but you have the all the power to be able to follow through on how you want to be treating yourself and what you want to be doing for yourself to help you feel right, help you feel what you want to feel about that situation. All right. Are there any more questions, guys? So thank you for giving me the opportunity to share um, my perspective and some of our content. Now, I've shared some key concepts. There's a circle of influence, which is things that is in our influence and that we can control. Focus on that. Okay. Be proactive. Create some space for you to respond. Begin with the end in mind. Define what it is that you want. Okay. And be aware of what you're feeling and what your paradigms are. Feelings come from beliefs and how we view things and how we experience things. You know, um, and how we think and see a situation. Can influence how we feel about that situation. Okay. To be personal and to be real about it, there was a time in my life where if I saw a little baby crying, yes, there is wonder and yes, there is annoyance. I'm like, oh my God, little baby. My face, I'm the guy in the meme with the face as a little baby walks in the cabin of an airplane. That's me. And then I had my own child. So now I have a 10-month-old baby, and that has changed because of the way I look at that situation. That has changed from seeing that as an annoying little situation. Now I'm like, okay, because baby doesn't know how to express themselves. They're learning about the world. They don't know anything. They're doing their best, try to learn and express what they need. They are trying to communicate, and that has changed how I feel about it. I no longer feel so distant and annoyed when I see a baby crying. Now I come from a place of trying to understand and see. Okay, he's crying. Yes. Okay, I wonder how that baby's feeling about that. Right. So that's also an example of how when I got in touch with my paradigm and how I was feeling about it, it allowed me to allowed myself to actually be better connected and be curious about how other people are feeling as well. Right? That's a big tip that I want to share with you guys. So with that, thank you very much, guys, for joining us this afternoon for More Than a Feeling. Okay, I keep telling the team we should do this a la wrestling. Maybe there should be entrance and exit music. Maybe we can do that next time. Okay, I'm Lippy. I'm a Franklin Covey facilitator. This is live. This is not scripted. You just saw me mess that up, and that's okay. Join us for our next sessions. Next, it will be Anna sharing some tips on what would help get teams to success as well. Okay, and watch out for the next session. And I hope you enjoy this dose of real talk and really trying to understand how our concepts also applies to you and how it can be helping you not only get emotionally intelligent and emotionally aware about yourself, but also connect with other people, right? So with that, thank you very much for this afternoon. I hope you have a great day, a great week ahead, and we'll see you guys soon. Thank you.